Hey, this is Max Alper, aka Parrotsky, and you are listening to Group Critique Fight Club. Looks like we got a lag going on the video, whatever. Close out of some apps. Whew. All right. We are back. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's Group Critique Fight Club. Monday nights, we are back. I'm back from the road. 7 days straight of shows. And let me tell you, I'm not cut out for anything more than that. Barely cut out for that as it stands. Tour was great. As always, it's not just the playing the shows, which are always fun for the most part, but the social practice of going somewhere new and playing music with people who you've only, sort of met on the internet, and then turning those casual acquaintances online into real life friendships. It's a beautiful thing, and there's very few analogies in which adults can find themselves, or similar fields of social practice that adults can find themselves in. With younger people, it's often like sports leagues and things like that. I guess gaming could absolutely be one of those. A lot of people make online friends gaming, and then go to the meetup, and they're finally doing the hang in real life. But music is one of those things that inherently is social by virtue of just taking your project out of the home studio once at all, even if it's just starting on the internet in places like this, or distributing yourself online, or promoting yourself, and just finding people in your region or not, and connecting with them over something like sound. It's a beautiful thing when that connection can be taken a step further and brought into the real world. The people that I played with, the people that I met, are artists that I admire, artists who I had never heard before but knew of, and those I had never met or heard of in my life. And it was for each of those categories, it's still just a truly gratifying, rewarding thing to share a bill with someone, even for a room of 10 people, and so I highly recommend DIY will never die, so as long as you put yourself out there in even these small ways, and start locally. You never know who's in your area, has a similar sort of thought process of sound, or not. You know, I played on a bunch of shared bills during this thing. Shared bills are fucking awesome. So start where you are, but you never know who's in your area or who's in your general region and who'd be down to book a show. And all of a sudden, you got 3 or 4 people together think of the same thing. You got a bill, you know, and there's a show. It's I see people in comment sections saying like, man, I wish I was born in fucking 2007 or whatever, when you could really play shows, house shows and stuff like that, or DIY shows. It's like, you can. Don't be scared, you know? I think there's been a generational pull towards a phobia of taking that next step of turning something that was once, you know, just strictly an online thing into an IRL thing. So I really do think, and we also still live in houses. Yeah, it's hard to book DIY shows at big ass fucking warehouses in place like Bushwick, you know, and shit that was really popping off in the 2000s and early 2010s. I understand the crushing real estate market and how hard it is, but that is why, like, you gotta look towards these other small cities to play shows, you know. I hate hearing things are A market and B market and C market cities when it comes to playing shows, because for at least people like me playing more experimental music who aren't necessarily trying to sell out some massive venues or play slightly more catered towards a more mainstream audience type of music. So in those situations, you should always be thinking about like the immediate sort of social groups around you, large or small, and how you can connect with these people and finding a way to put them on bills, have in their town or in your town, and then vice versa when you want to roll through theirs. You know what I mean? DIY will never die if you offer up your couch, you know, and your back porch in the summer, or your living room even, your basement. This is where it starts, and it doesn't need to, you know, grow into anything other than that if you don't want it to, you know. Truly admirable lifers go through this world in this circuit, and they're the stuff of legends, you know. It's folk legends. You can't kill subculture entirely. You can crush it in a scalable sense, but when it goes underground, it stays underground, and so as long as people are willing to talk to each other and make things happen, it'll keep happening. It'll keep happening, you know. I'm saying this to the younger people who might be tuning in or later on watching this or listening to this. Music is socialist, so be social. I'm always fucking saying it, but it's not a joke. Shit's real. If you build it, they will come. That's just how it is. But yeah, it went well. I'm very tired, but invigorated as usual. Definitely feeling 35. I'll tell you that much. In my feet, in my knees, in my back. sitting in the car for 2,600 miles. You know what I mean? GG says, very true and hard to respect noise ordinances that are sometimes randomly enforced, but you gotta ask for forgiveness, not permission. Very thankful I live in a place with a live music scene. For sure. Better yet, you know, if you know your neighbors, go talk to them. Invite them out. You know what I mean? Do stuff in the afternoon in the backyard when it's not like sleeping hours, you know? Find ways to, you know, make it an open door, and not just you know, hoping for the best. You know, there are ways you can guarantee community building and success with your endeavors, and not have to worry about the fuzz, about the fucking pigs. One time in my senior year of high school, I booked a show in the afternoon at my parents' backyard, and the cops showed up, and my parents were like, "We're here, man. Like, this is chaperoned, you know, and we legit weren't getting fucked up. Maybe some people were pre-gaming or whatever, but they weren't doing it at my house, you know. So it's like, and we told our neighbors. My parents made me do that. We had to walk around and tell everyone, hey, we're putting on a show, and this is Saturday afternoon, blah, blah, blah. You can come if you want, blah, 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 blah. You know? Cops didn't have nothing. If you do a little due diligence like that, you don't need your parents. You can do it yourself. All right. Welcome. We back. Shout outs to Tape Trade once again for supporting us, supporting the stream. Doing it right. We are continuing on with our June continuous playlist. I know I told you I was going to get a monthly project in before tour, but it was just too much going on. So you'll have it this week. I promise. We might not have a guest artist this time around, but it's a good project. Still finding, see if I can confirm someone else, but it's okay if not. It'll be fun. Nonetheless, even if you're just stuck with me. But yeah, shout outs to Tape Trade, lossless hosting, playlisting, private and public. You know, own the means of production. Don't be giving away your fucking data to Dropbox, big file transfer. Shout outs to Tape Trade once again for supporting us here on Fight Club. Let's get into it. We got some tunes up on the Discord for the week. What do we got going on? I'm going to get to at least 5 today. It looks like we have 5, maybe 6. Let us see here. Starting with Taeghan. Taeghan wrote to us earlier, nothing makes me more productive than submitting to Group Critique Fight Club. That's right. Getting hours worth of theorizing arranged in 10 minutes. All right, well, don't rush. Don't rush. But you could still be productive, no doubt. Okay. We got ourselves track here. What is it? What is it? What is it? Am I still live? Am I still live? I should be. Yes. It's not smooth streaming. Sorry if the quality is shitty. Don't know why my computer's being slow today, but whatever. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Taeghan with Damsel Railway. Let's go. She acting real slow. Come on, man. Damn it. Oh. Love this. I'm gonna refresh the page. It's definitely not anything but my computer. Certainly not even the internet in this case. I can see it being slow on my fucking CPU right now. Please hold. Sorry for the delays. Alright. Trying this again. Damsel Railway. Ugh. Damn, bro. Shit is lagging. Shit. There we go. All right. All right. All right. Is any of this coming through on the stream? Is it audibly coming through? Is it visually chopped up? You let me know. It was not lagging on my end once it actually started going, but I have no idea how the stream is being perceived over here. Besides that, it's acknowledging that here that it's laggy as fuck, but obviously sound is more important than sight. So you let me know if sound is also getting cut through, in which case we might have to restart on the stream, which would be annoying, but not the worst thing in the world. Taeghan, we got the beginnings of something here, man. But you're running into the, you know, the tonality issue. It's okay to be working with these more dissonant sort of scales here, you know, but we're dealing with this sort of like parallel chromaticism as far as your polyphony goes, you know. Anyways, Taeghan, spread out your notes. Get it a bit more broken across the octaves here. I think it's just too condensed the way that it stands right now. And then from there, like, how are you going to expand on this dynamically? You know, it's all one zone right now as far as loudness goes, even with or without expanding the voices and you know, adding more voices to it and adding noises and things like that. A few of the times you like ba 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 ba, like we start banging on the keys a bit more and we could hear the dynamics shift in that. But we do need more expansion on this. Add percussion, you know. I think that would be something really, you know, find a way, if this is film score inspired, find a way to create more moments of impact. You know what I mean? Use noises to your advantage. Use percussion, not just for the sake of drums, but for the sake of creating, like, you know, hits, moments that are meant to be accentuated, impact noises meant to, like, literally create and, like, escalate drama in that way. Curious about your influences here. Obviously mentioning film score or video game score as like one category in which this could be used, because you're trying to create some tension here. But be curious what the other your other influences might be, or where you might see this. Spread your notes out. Less tone clusters, less all together. Take full advantage of the piano roll. You know what I mean? Let's get to it. Give me a second here. I'm going to quit a few more of these fucking apps. Hopefully make it easier on my damn computer. This shit is laggy today. Quitting that. What else? Okay, cool. Quitting this too. Alright. Let's get back to it. More music on the way. Who do we have? Beep, 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 beep. Breathplay. Breathplay says, I made this ambient piece using a recorder I took of a friend's live set. Early versions of it had a lot more layers and stuff and ultimately sounded like a simulation of an audio processing disorder. This is much closer to what I'm trying to do, but it still feels too crowded, too glary, too dynamic. I wanted to have drama, but per the title, I want it to be private and interior kind of drama. I want it to have emotion. I want some of that emotion to be the ambivalence we associate with dub. It's especially important because it's meant as a come down at the end of a dour and depressive techno EP. All right. Good stuff here. Let us go with Pray in Secret featuring Lou Mace. Very nice. Very good stuff. Am I still fucking up this fucking lag, man? Is it still shitty? I hope not. I hope the audio is coming through. Gonna have to do a full restart on the computer. If not, which would be annoying as hell. You let me know. I mean, this is really lovely as far as what the composition entails here. Knowing that this is made from only one little lag, mostly smooth. All right, fingers crossed. Audio was good for the majority. Jesse's saying, I feel like this definitely accomplishes emotional ambivalence. Nice. I do wish that one dissonant metallic drone was more prominent. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think from the notes you were saying about the emotional impact of this, I mean, this is, again, giving a more... ironically, also giving a type of drama that I would imagine would work well with a certain type of film score, you know, more cerebral sort of drama in a way that is melancholic in its true form. You know, it's not sad, it's not tragic in that way, but it certainly leaves a lot to be desired as far as like yearning for actual happiness. You know, like it has this this come down, like you said, you know, as if like it's emotionally exhausted in some ways, which I think is it works very nice at the end, like you're saying, at the end of a dub techno EP. I think that would be very appropriate. I think it would be nice to fill the frequencies a bit more out, you know. I mean, it has this maybe it's just based on the quality of the recording, because I know it's based off samples of a live recording, and it's sort of centered around the original pitches of those performances, whether it's like an acoustic guitar and voice or something, I'm not sure. I think it would be nice to fill it out, you know, even further in the low end by the end of it, you know, starting out where it is now, but maybe pitch shifting it down an octave or doubling it down an octave with a lower pitch shifter, like putting it on one of the other decks and creating this more like sort of just warmer low end drone of what we're hearing here, which is like some more middle drones happening as far as the loops here. And I think that from there it would also sort of like serve it justice to like deconstruct further towards the end, you know, where it's legible for the majority of the time, but then as we start to get lower and lower, it starts to abstract a little bit further. It's not slowing down, you know, like we tend to think of like, you know, pitched down as slowing down the tempo, but no, it could be in halftime as far as the loop goes, but also like it's kind of winding down the trajectory of the piece, you know. I have it pretty reined in. I could push the lows more. Yeah, I mean, definitely in the EQ pushing the lows more, but I'm literally thinking about like creating a bass drone out of the same materials towards the end. I don't know how many decks you're working with here, but if you have the ability to do more than two, thinking about a third that could be like a lower, you know, halftime octave down register. I was pairing it farther and farther back EQ-wise, trying to get it as subdued as possible. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just thinking about your compositional trajectory here. Like, what is the arc of the piece that you're going for here right now? And maybe you want it to remain sort of not like stagnant as far as the trajectory of the piece compositionally goes, but like the main sort of source material of it, you know, staying in that octave and not moving up or down the registers, but keeping it sort of in this one zone the entire time. There's no DJ. Okay, this is all Ableton. Okay, so then yeah, like absolutely experiment with auxiliary octave doubles, you know, like find a way to expand on this as far as register goes, in either direction. Go up You know, I mean, like, I guess if you're asking me, that's what I would do. But if you're saying that you want to sort of remain in this one zone, I would find ways to make it even more like minimal, stagnant. You know, like utilize the gate. Find ways to remove sounds here too. You know, I think that would be very effective here with the loops. You know, almost in a disintegration, no pun intended, disintegration loop sort of context here of removing elements of the audio as it continues on. You know, it leaves a lot. Like yearning is a good word I'm returning to in my head when thinking about, you know, the sort of emotional impact, the emotional I guess descriptor I would use for this. I think that just, you know, what this could do as far as like expanding on that yearning, there could be even less. But I guess it's up to you what type of what is the trajectory compositionally for this, you know? I know it's not an improvisation. I know you're making this as tape music in the DAW. So it's good to think about this from like what is the I understand the emotional sort of framework, the trajectory that you want it to take, and, you know, the ambivalence of it all. But now compositionally, musically, like what is the looking for rock bottom is the vibe, very much yearning. Okay. Well, keep exploring the depths. There you go. Searching for rock bottom, eventually it will be hit. Keep removing, you know? Keep going further down. Find ways for it to disintegrate or sink further and further, you know? I think the usage of going into lower octaves and going double time and expanding the duration as well as the register, lower register of the source material might also, you know, drive that feeling home all the more. Good stuff. But certainly within this realm of dub, like it still feels very appropriate in this world. You know, there's a lot of ways in which, you know, ambient techno and just ambient by itself and dub, you know, blend into themselves a little bit here. And like, and your work here, Breathplay, as a collage artist who happens to also do a lot of DJing, I think is a very effective bridge here, because it has us focusing on pulse and feedback more than necessarily beats. But at the same time, like, pulse and feedback are what make dub techno, minus the minus the four to the floor. You know, like, what we have at its core is pulse and, you know, not just feedback, but like expansion, sustain of time, you know, and like to the point at which it starts to self-oscillate or mutate in some way and abstract, you know. I think that that's a you're touching on that here, even without giving us a beat in this piece, you know. And I think that's a really lovely thing. So you're totally in the framework of dub, even if it's not explicitly dub techno, you know. You know, I'm not a purist on this, so I would also talk to folks who are in that world all the more to get their perspective on this, because I'm always coming at it hearing this as a collage, and not this piece particular, but the majority of your stuff as Breathplay, collage through the framework of DJ software and live controller performance, you know. I'd be curious how you add this, how you blend this into a live performance, knowing that this is an Ableton piece. So let's see you do that. Let's hear how this is gonna at least blend in the EP itself. But I'd be curious how you would work this into a more formal set as well. Good stuff. Oh man. I hope you got all that. God damn, the CPU's on fucking fire right now, bro. Alright, let's see how much we can do here. Who do we got up next? We got Geegiwhat. They write to us, was gifted a studio session with my band, so I had a recording experience for the first time. Nice. Was very ambitious and went for a Lizzie McAlpine thing tracked live. Was very nervous, just unsure on how to give feedback on mixing, vocal takes, and doubling. This might be the last mix, just because I'm tired of sending things back and forth. Heard that. Feel bad, but I like the vocal. But I feel like the vocals are too loud. I'd like general song feedback, as this is one of the first songs I've ever finished and performed in front of people, and feedback in the mix, mostly for future recording experiences, songwriting, and whatnot. Very cool. Very cool. All right. First times for everything. Lots of stuff we could talk about here. Let's hear the track, and then we'll talk about composition, song structure first, and then we could talk about mixing stuff. But, you know, ideally, in a perfect world, I've said this before, in a perfect world, we don't need to know how to mix our own vocals and all that stuff. You know, we're working with engineers. I know you got gifted a session this time, but ultimately, like, it would be great if we had engineers as collaborators that we can work with all the time who really get to know your sound and can handle the technicals while you focus on the compositional, you know. But it's just not the case, you know. Oftentimes we are DIYing it as far as the studio experience goes. And so, like, the most important thing we could do is when we are in a formal studio working with engineers is that we're able to translate our more floaty, maybe abstract ideas into concrete language that an engineer who might not know everything about us and our project, that into language that they would understand, you know. So some technical language can go a long way in you know, giving feedback and talking to the engineer. So let's figure out what we can say if the vocals are too loud, as far as how we can articulate these things to our engineers, and hopes that they will, you know, remain our collaborators and give us some freebies in the future or something. All right, let's check it out. 10th Street Mater. All right. Damn it. Come on now. Again. Ugh, hold on. Oh, I love this internet. I love my computer. Been touring. Can you tell that I was touring with my laptop for the past week? Using the shit out of it in live performance. And now it's trying to punish me after all that. Hold on. You're saying, yes, this is the problem. Communicating the abstract in a good way that isn't offensive. Yeah, I mean, don't worry about being offensive. Be respectful, but be firm. You know? It's your art at the end of the day. They don't know what you want, so you have to be direct, but it's just about being respectful and also finding a way to articulate yourself in, like, literal language that they'll understand. All right. Trying again.
I have mixed feelings. I'm in two minds. I am confused, like all of the time. I'm walking down 10th Street. I'm walking the line where hurting each other. We're not even trying. What makes a person? What makes them good? Do I have the patience to be misunderstood? Leave the door open, leave it alone. Leave me a voicemail tone. Pick up the phone.
Oh man, this is fantastic. Give it up for Gigi. Wonderful first submission here, man. Really, really lovely stuff. I think compositionally, you're doing some really interesting stuff here. You know, it's toying with almost twee indie pop singer-songwriter stuff to some degree, but your modality, choice of chord progressions, you know, near chromaticism at times, not giving us exactly what we expect, you know, keeping it safe at times and then getting pretty dangerous at other times. I think it's really, really lovely, just what you're doing here as far as, you know, the certain choices, you know. I think it's a really lovely arrangement too. You know, small band, but the usage of flute, usage of you know, beyond your standard indie sort of arrangement. It's quite nice. It's almost giving like Beverly Glenn Copeland to some degree, like the early side of it. This more whimsical. It feels like 1970s folk. It's really, really lovely. You know, the way that it's orchestrated, the trajectory, you know, being so melody focused, you know, like this is pop. This is meant to be front and center, your vocals heard. And that brings up the question of how it should be mixed. And I know that Breathplay is talking about it in the chat too. I don't think the vocals are too loud. I think it's the perfect volume. This is Celine Dion. The voice is the meat and everything else is dressing. I wouldn't say everything else, but I mean, this is pop music and the words you're saying have meaning, you know? And I think that, like, they should be front and center. You're saying in the chat, I also wanted a drier vocal, but asked multiple times with references and felt like nothing else could be done. They're saying maybe, Jesse's saying maybe a little heavy on the vocal reverb, really sweeping. I mean, it sounds pretty dry to me. I mean, especially in the high frequencies, it's cutting through. It serves the soprano register of your voice quite well. I mean, like, if you were to be a little more distant, it would risk us not hearing your lyrics. But I also think that, like, this is meant for you to be the loudest thing in the room. You know what I mean? Not that it's loud music and that it's really loud vocals or anything like that, but I do think that, like, that has to be the lead instruments, the most prominent thing. I'm curious if this is more your insecurity of hearing yourself so loudly in this lead role. You know what I mean? Because, like, you should be confident. This is strong stuff, This is not just any other sort of song. Like, we could hear you actively combining influences here and trying to make something that sounds slightly off the beaten path from more strictly indie singer-songwriter stuff. You're making a few dangerous choices here and there that I think are very tasteful. I would love some harmonies, in your arrangement. I would love some stacking of the vocals and not just a singular sort of take. I don't know if that goes against your sort of ethos with this piece. I mean, like, I think it would be just a nice sort of development into the choruses to have at least an upper harmony on this. I think that you have a wonderful voice. I think that it should just, like, you should play the role of the lead vocalist that much more, lay into it. You're saying the first half gels more to me, but the first half I was so tortured over the mix and the style. Aww. Breathplay say, I do think your engineer is treating you poorly. It really sounds like they're not holding up their end of the dialogue. Wanted to dry your vocals. Interesting. Well, I mean, like, it's not overly reverberant, If you want to have drier vocals, tell them, like, please take out, like reduce the amount of reverb on this, I'm just curious as to, like, how we can articulate exactly what you mean. Stay-at-home cousin says, I do think when you're focused on your own vocals, you feel like it's too loud with the others' ears. It just sounds correct in that the lyrics are audible and the vocals are up front. Like, when you hear yourself, you're familiar with the lyrics and it's easy for you to parse. But for a new listener, we need more of a pop-forward vocals. Yeah, I guess it's really just, like, thinking about the vision here as this is pop music, like, where, how audible should your lyrics be? How audible should every syllable of your voice be? Because you can absolutely make a more creative choice here and just say, like, hey, like, I'd like to go for, like, slightly not standard vocal mix here and just bring it back slightly. I don't think it needs to be drier. I don't think it's over reverberant. But if you genuinely want it to be more blended, that's a more alternative sort of style of mixing, but articulate that specifically. Like, can we remove 5 dB from the vocal channel? Can we take out 5 to 10 decibels and see how if it still cuts through when it's that much quieter? That's a reasonable amount quieter. It's not a crazy amount. I think you just got to think about, like, dynamically, where do you want it to be? Do you want it to be a bit more, like, dream poppy in the sense that it's a bit more restrained? Just think about that from, like, dynamics. Like, if you were performing this live, like, how do you want to hear yourself live? Do you want to be that front and center voice, or do you like things to be a bit more blended? Could it be coming from the bleed? You mean, like, in the headphones? I wasn't really hearing much of that. I was focused on the instrumental arrangement, like when you weren't singing, I mean, I think that I wasn't picking up any bleed. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the what's the problem. I think if you want it, maybe blended is what I mean. Okay, so if that's what you mean, then let's ask them for, like, please give me a version of this with 5 to 10 dB less in the vocal levels. Like, let it be in the back more. Let's not treat this like a standard indie pop vocal mix, and actually, like, actively try to, pull it back a bit more. Maybe more lo-fi, not hi-fi. Okay, well, in that case, I mean, like, if you want to dry, you were saying you want it more dry and stuff like that, tell them to go for a bit more of a treble heavy telephone sounding mix, rather than a full frequency range vocal mix. Find a way to make it sound like it's coming through a smaller speaker. Reamp it with some spring reverb. You know what I mean? Give it some twang in that. Yeah, Stay-at-Home Cousin saying, I agree, because it does sit well in the mix. It's possible it could lose a little in volume and still feel upfront and audible. Yeah, because, you sing in a high register anyways. I definitely think it would cut through. And maybe what you really need is actually more reverb and less dry vocals, but also less loud. Wetter and quieter. Interesting, okay? From, like, singing through the guitars because we were singing in the room, maybe. I don't know if you're overthinking, but I understand the insecurity of this. I would think about, what if you feel the same way listening to it with, like, 5 to 10 dB less vocal mix. I would just be curious what your response to that would be. If you still feel the same way, it might be an insecurity. I think it's I mean, everybody has it, but you really don't have anything to worry about here. You have a lovely sound here, and it's unique, It's not a cookie cutter. Compositionally, I think this is really providing something familiar, but doing new things with it, Stay-at-Home Cousin says, it's good to be open in different ways of achieving what you want in the end product. Absolutely. I mean, if you want to go for a more blended dream poppier sort of thing, I mean, like Stay-at-Home Cousin said, bring up the reverb. But I would be worried about not having your lyrics be legible in that case. I think starting with a relatively quieter, more restrained and bashful, but still, like, maintaining this dryness that you have right now would be a good start. Tell them to just bring it back 5 to 10 dB and see what you think. Good stuff. Oh my goodness. Man, this computer is on fucking fire. It's okay, everything's being recorded. We're gonna do 2 more for today, and we'll get back to it next week. Got something coming up right now from Jesse. Saying, tell me more about the dangerous choices. I'm talking about your chord progressions specifically, GG. Some of the things that you were doing, like 3 out of the 4 chords were what we expected, but that 4th one might have been, raising it up a not necessarily dissonant, but not necessarily purely in the major or minor scale. Going modal when not least expected, but less expected. it just made it not cookie cutter. Maintain that. If that's your gut instinct of writing, like, maintain that. Seriously. All right. Jesse has written to us a sketch rather than a proper draft. Quick stereo recording. Anything finished will be longer and properly multi-tracked and mixed. A friend wants to do a split release where we have to make use of the tombola sequencer. If you aren't familiar, notes are treated as balls bouncing inside of a spinning wheel where every collision sounds like a note. Despite my typical creative tastes, I've never clicked with tombola, but this exercise is helping me come around to it. Polyphonic voice is from the OP1 and tombola, which feeds my Eurorack. The chaotic notes serve as an unsteady clock for a sequence bass, amongst other things. Composition like this naturally can feel loose in form, so I'm trying to steer closer to structure. I feel the bass sequencer helps, for example. Okay. Let's check this out. Second sketch from Jesse. All right. Good beginning sketches going on here. I think it needs to develop a little bit further. First, I think that we should find a way to contrast the pluckiness and the percussiveness of the high end, and I love the sort of wood sort of sounds we're hearing. The really, really nice sort of scattering of percussion going on in the high end. I think the low end should have a longer envelope. I think it should be slowly leading in to every pitch in the low end. I think that it's a bit distracting having this ba ba ba, it's I think you should lay into the bouncing sort of chaotic clock of it, not necessarily being super steady, in which we're not even trying to hear things necessarily with a tempo, but rather just as this sort of various pacings that we can't interpret as a singular pulse, but more along the lines of texture, very much like the sort of clicking sounds that we were hearing. It just eventually becomes a sound mass. I think we should just lay into that, where it's developing towards texture no matter what. And I think that just having this more just like hard low end in the envelope of the low end is sort of distracting us from that. It sounds too abrupt amongst all of these other more just like, if we just treat that low end as more of just a sustained, slow sort of lead into these long tone drones, it could be even slower as far as the delivery of the low end here. And in fact, if you were using a longer envelope, it would be that much more effective to treat it with as a still not straightforward clock, but a slower one at that. I think that just like the way that it is right now, and also just like maybe just like have a gradual time-based effect, like some sort of master bus echo with like a long sort of feedback tail, like allow that to build so that by the end it's becoming that much more of a reflective piece, where it really is all sort of summing into a sound mass, the bouncingness of the clock, like as you described with the module as part of the prompt, that's absolutely there. You know what I mean? But I just don't think that like we should attempt to apply a sort of underarching structure to this. I think that like the bass can just take a bit more of a gentler approach on entry. You know, I think that would just improve this all the more. And also like filtering the bass too, starting out with more like low cut and slowly opening up the filter. You know, it's kind of just a single timbre right now. But yeah, absolutely, a longer attack is what could is. I think it'll just make it that much more blended. That feel more natural and aligned, rather than juxtaposed, because the other parts are working quite well with each other. It's the low end to me that felt distracting. So find a way to zhuzh that in more gently, and keep developing this from the mix perspective. You know, find ways to decide what the trajectory is dynamically here, because again, this is remaining in one zone right now. If we add more time-based effects, if we make more density through the mix, it can also get a lot louder. You know, are we building upwards? Are we staying in the same place? You know, think about that. As far as clocking, is a little hard to control due to the nature of the tombola. I've been getting more familiar with it as I use it. I mean, like, is there a way to set it at a initially slower pace, even if it's doing this more kind of chaotic bouncing? Is there a general region of BPM you can set it at? And are you doing this all at once? Is this all a single take? Do you have a clock multiplier? Do you have a clock divider module? You know, is there anything you could do to modulate in a slower sense the clock with the low end so it could fill more of the space, especially if we were to use a longer envelope? Yeah, a longer attack. Try that out. Fill it out more. Less distraction. Alright, we're going to do one more. We're going to do one more today, because my computer's on fire. And if anyone else has submitted since then, you will be at the top of the list next time, I promise. We got one from Potvorrah, closing us out. One take performance on Electron model samples with some post-processing and mastering in Ableton. My attempt to come close to halftime DMB sounds in the style of EEPROM shades and the like. Sounds pretty raw, but it was a nice challenge to attempt to make a style that is so reliant on production on this really limited machine. Hardware performance of halftime DMB. MS Shades 85 by Potvorrah. Let's get it. Fuck yeah. This exactly what Breathplay is saying in the comments here. This ain't D&B, it's hip hop. This needs a rapper. Someone needs to be growling over threats over this and mean it. This is reminding me of like fucking Dalek, like some like hard experimental hardware based hip hop specifically. I mean, I understand that this is bass music. We got some of this growling shit going on here. I'm not super familiar with the reference you were saying of EEPROM and Shades specifically, but like, I'm imagining if there were vocals over this specifically, what it would be like: toasting, Jamaican style, usage of dub delays on this specifically, but in contrast to this hard and dry beat specifically would be really effective. I know you're just experimenting as it's instrumental here, but you gotta encourage someone to spit on this, man. A lot of sound out of this one machine. Like you said, effective stuff, but again, a testament to you as both a technologist and you know, like having an ear for this stuff. It's doing simple music effectively. Horrorcore in the waiting, 100%. I feel that. Not to say it sounds like exactly like Miguel, but I've been listening to older Kid 606 lately, and this reminded me of him. If you're feeling like this held back by a minimal approach, it doesn't sound like it to me. Rad. I agree. You're getting a very full sound effectively, because it's very simple. You know, it's very simple music. You know, this is a fantastic foundation for someone to, like, you know, just straight up on this beat. It's 3 minutes long. Like, we're already there. You know what I mean? Just get Space Ape. Exactly. We need someone to toast over this. 100%. You already got the Space Echo in there. You already got this pretty dubbed out on its own, right? I want some serious toasting over this. It would be super effective in this case. I don't care if it's embarrassing for me to do those toasting impressions. Find someone to spit on this. Seriously. It would be fantastic. Make more shit like this too. Within this, like, grimy ass, like, horrorcore bass music specifically. Get too many sounds, too many styles coming from Potvorrah. We need an MC, and not just Potvorrah, you MC. I know you've done that for yourself too. Find someone in the Discord to spit on this. There's got to be someone. Oy oy oy. Good shit. Alright, we're going to call it there for today because my CPU is... I can hear it. It's fucking crazy. This shit is lagging like a motherfucker. I know, Stay-at-Home Cousin, you had just submitted something. I'm going to put you at the front for next time, I promise. Sorry about that. Forgive me and my slow-ass computer. We're going to give it a break. But thankfully all of this was recorded, so at least we got everyone's tracks on the record. Stay tuned for the monthly project coming at it next week, or at the end of this week. It'll be a doozy. Promise you that. And yeah, hope everybody has a wonderful week. Maintain hydration and a strong sleep schedule. I certainly did not do that this week, and I'm paying the price of catching up for it. Wasn't even drinking. It's just the adrenaline of performing every fucking night and not being able to go to sleep at a reasonable hour. It takes its fucking toll. Treat yourself well. Treat your bodies well. And I will see you next Sunday, normal time, for our Patreon edition of Group Critique Fight Club. Have a wonderful week, everybody. See you very soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to another edition of Group Critique Fight Club with me, Max Alper, aka Parrotsky. You can sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/Parrotsky to get access to our Sunday Zoom school on top of the regular live public stream. Public stream takes place every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. All are welcome. And you are listening to the track Atop Alpdog Mountain, Ja Plays Pokemon Go by me.